Well, lots of things are going on campus despite that the spring semester is over. But a crazy week last week, a crazy good week last week, where literally thousands of people were on campus for our commencements, let alone other commencements. But a lot going on, and to hear from our leader, please welcome President Coach Smart.
Good, thanks, Brent. I'm just glad the construction project we're not talking about at the Grand Street. I'll come back to that in a minute. All right, so last week is and was the highlight of the year, right? We graduated 2,901 students, of which over 900 had graduate degrees, over 100 received doctorates. It is the largest graduate degree ceremonies we've ever awarded in terms of numbers. And Brett was right. There were people sitting on the very top row of Great Southern Bank Arena, and all three ceremonies probably had close to 30,000 people in attendance. It was fabulous. It was a fabulous day. And on Friday, we graduated another 272 students at the West Plains campus. And so very, very, very fun opportunity, a great end of the year. So as we think about kind of what's happening over the next several weeks, it really becomes a wrap up of the last semester and our time to celebrate and have a good time as fun things happen all over the university. And then I encourage our team to try to get at least 2 weeks off in July so that we're ready to go when we reconvene in August for the new semester. So a couple of things I would put out there. The Emeriti dinner is Tuesday evening, June 20th. I know many of you are a part of that group, and I would encourage you to RSVP if you have not. Tom Peters, our Dean of Libraries, is going to be giving a presentation on the Smithsonian Folklife Festival, of which we are a major sponsor in Washington, D.C. this summer. Expect to have over 1 million people go through the mall as they learn about Ozarks crafts and culture and music and history, and many of our own folks will be contributing to that. The July 4th concert is the Ozark Mountain Daredevils, and so all things Ozarks on Washington, D.C. You guys will get a little preview of that at the Emeriti dinner. And then Tent Theater opens for the summer that Friday, June 23rd. With Anything Go. It'll be our first tent theater performance in the John Goodman Amphitheater. We've had a bunch of other things happen there over the last several weeks, including our jazz ensemble final semester concert, a great foundation event, and music with on a Friday night that the Alumni Association put together. So it is a fantastic venue. If you haven't got tickets for that, I would get them quickly because particularly that first show is going to sell out. And here's where the underpass comes in. You can now park south of Grand and walk into campus without ever taking a stair. It's a beautiful gradual ramp into campus. There's an elevator on the other side. No one has to risk life and limb climbing those awful stairs anymore. They don't exist. And so yeah, if that was a reason that kept you away, we're back in business, and all 4 lanes at Grand were open for commencements on Friday, and so life is good. Again, happy that you are here today, and I'll take it back over to Brent.
All right, we will bring our genius, so if you please welcome Dr. Brad Snow. All right, have a seat. Won't hurt too bad. So we're going to start off. Really, your title I mean, you've been called a lot of things, in a nice way, but tell us your official title.
I'm officially the director of bands.
Director of bands, okay, there's a lot of other things that go into that. So we're gonna go through the life history of Dr. Brad Snow. So start us off, tell us where you were born and tell us sort of your upbringing, your family, and we're gonna start from the beginning.
Sure. Yeah, born and raised in Kansas City, Missouri. Very close-knit family. As a matter of fact, my sister and mother still live next door to each other. And my brother was about a quarter mile away from them. So I'm kind of the black sheep, here down in Springfield. But yeah, we grew up in Kansas City. And about I don't know, 2 blocks away from Worlds of Fun. That was my summer, babysitter for my parents. Played a lot of sports, did a lot of swimming. Music was always a part of my life. Started piano at a very young age, and I'm kind of a boring kid, really.
No, you're not. But when you were in elementary school, so when you say you started playing the piano at an early age, did they have instruments, things like that in your elementary school?
We had a really strong music program. But where I started piano, there was this lady that lived, 2 doors down that taught every kid on the block piano. And, we just walked by there, it was a different time, you could actually go outside and play in your front yard and all that. And, it was this constant line of kids going in and taking piano lessons. And I, just would walk by there all the time and kept bugging my mom. I want to take piano lessons. I want to take piano lessons, and just kind of did it that way. And it was kind of, everybody on the block did it. So, why not?
So I assume you still play the piano.
Well, play the piano, I can bang out something slowly. Let's just say that. I'm not a virtuoso, never was.
So instruments though, when did I'm trying to think, junior high days?
It started in the 7th grade.
7th grade.
Yeah, which is
was
actually pretty late. And I started on trumpet.
Trumpet.
Yeah, it was kind of a weird situation. Again, everybody, on my block was, involved in music somehow. And middle school was just a brand new concept at that time. And so, we just started the middle school concept. So I was in the 6th grade, and the building was 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And I could hear every day, I would hear the 8th grade band from down the hallway, and I could hear them play the same march every day. And I kept bugging my mom. I want to do this. I want to do this. And it was kind of a tough sell because whenever I was in the 4th grade, I talked her somehow into letting me play violin, but that only lasted 2 weeks. And so she thought, oh, here we go again. So, but trumpet stuck.
So why did it only last 2 weeks?
Have you ever heard somebody play violin on the beginning violin is pretty painful, and everybody has kind of been around that. And so, my mom to this day is we consider her a dog lady. We had 4 dogs at the time, and it was violin and 4 dogs. This is not a good thing.
Yeah, that'd been fun. So did you know you were musically inclined? Did you say, hey, I got some talent in this?
Again, my mom was very influential in all things musical. Music was always around growing up, and I started again, I started in the 7th grade, but my mom got me in lessons early. And so I had already had 3 months of private lessons before I was supposed to start band. And I actually kind of skipped the 7th grade band and got to start playing with the 8th grade band.
Oh,
And so that was kind of a instant confidence boost for me. And honestly, I knew that I either wanted to play trumpet or I wanted to be a band director, and I never faltered from it. That's what I've done my entire life.
so in high school, obviously you were in the marching band.
I was,
And how big was that band?
it was a pretty good sized band. Between my freshman and my sophomore year, there was a band director change. So it's a little bit, different, as happens a lot. My band director, my freshman year is a really well-known, music educator. His name is, Charlie Mangini. He was just retired at, Vandercook a few years ago. Has written several, method books and things like that. So my experience was really, it was a really strong experience my freshman year. Kind of, lit that fire for me, especially with the marching band. Again, freshmen weren't allowed to march in the marching band. But he knew I had a passion for it, and he created a spot for me my freshman year in the marching band. So, and then we switched directors, and it was a completely different direction for the program. And I was actually really fortunate to have one of the very first female band directors in the state at the time, a lady by the name of Pat Setzer, who to this day serves as a mentor for me, and just, you know, just really showed me the value of, you know, positive reinforcement, and just made me, you know, really understand that my potential and the places that music could bring me.
So at what age did you say, hey, I am gonna be a band?
When I was 12.
When you were 12? Wow, that's very impressive.
Yeah.
And it worked out.
So far, so good.
Yeah. So tell us your college days. What happened there?
Well, I was an undergrad at the University of Missouri. I think, yeah, there's a whole booze down there.
So you made some early mistakes.
Well, yeah. Well, no, what's crazy is, you know, I actually was not, you know, I was never recruited, to go anywhere. And so my brother, who's a year older than me, he ended up going to Mizzou, and, I was taking private lessons from a teacher at William Jewell College at the time. And, I was either gonna go to William Jewell, or I was just gonna go to Mizzou, to hang out with my brother. But anyway, I made a visit. I mean, really, it was way too late. And it was, you know, 2 weeks before band camp was supposed to start at Mizzou, and a late visit. And again, just a series of really fortunate circumstances. It just really worked out, and was a member of Marching Mizzou for 4 years. Had a wonderful, you know, music education experience there, and was able to, you know, get a teaching job right out of the gate, and, you know, I just solidified that I was doing the right thing.
You were ahead of your time.
I guess.
Several years ahead of your time. So, and then you became the band director at Mizzou. And then, so how did you get here? Tell us the story. How did you get to Missouri?
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting path. When I graduated from Mizzou, I actually taught high school band in Warrenton, Missouri for 5 years. That was my first teaching job. Very small program at the time, and as St. Louis is kind of, you know, spread out, then the suburbs, you know, stretching all the way out to Warrenton kind of benefits that as well. So I started off with a program of about 40 people, and about, you know, 5 years later when I left, we were marching about 150 in band. So it was a pretty cool experience. So but anyway, at the end of those 5 years, I made a really drastic decision, and I ended up joining the Marine Corps. And I decided I wanted to play in the band. And there was a friend of mine who we taught in the same conference. We were in the Eastern Missouri Conference. And at the time, Warrenton was in the same conference as Ellsbury, Missouri, a little small town, northeast Missouri. And made friends with the band director there. And he joined one of the Marine bands. And just, you know, we kept in touch. And he said, man, you should consider this. You should consider this. And I always kind of felt the calling to join the military. You know, grandpas, uncles, dad were all military members. And
All Marines?
no, I was the only Marine. They were Navy, Air Force, Merchant Marines.
Okay.
And so I just made the decision, and yeah, and I did it. So I was 27 years old whenever I went to boot camp. I actually turned 27 the week before I went. And was fortunate enough to serve at Quantico, Virginia for 4 years. Again, just a life-changing experience. Learned a lot about discipline, a lot about organization, and probably the most just about leadership and how the Marine Corps, you know, trains its leaders. So then I knew I was going to get out after 4 years, and a friend of mine who was a graduate student during my undergrad at Mizzou just kind of randomly reached out to me, and he had just taken the director of choral activities job at the University of Southern Mississippi. And so he's like, well, you should come down and check this place out. It's got a really strong band program. And so I ended up taking leave to go do a graduate audition at the University of Southern Mississippi, and loved it. And going on the GI Bill, was able to do my master's and my doctorate in 3 years down there. And then again, I've always been really lucky just as far as circumstances. At the end of those 3 years, then there was some shuffling of positions. One of our directors moved up into the dean's office, and there was our director of bands at the time was going on sabbatical. And so I actually got hired as a interim, assistant director of bands, and I did that for 2 years. And so after my 5 years total at University of Southern Mississippi, kind of felt it was time to move on. Need to kind of get kicked out of the nest a little bit. And I got hired as the associate director of bands at Oklahoma State University. And that was a really big, I consider that my first, college job, because I was still, very much, I had the training wheels on at Southern Miss. So anyways, director of Cowboy Marching Band for 4 years at Oklahoma State. I was there for the whole, Mike Gundy, I'm a man, all that stuff. And then an opportunity, again, getting this really fortunate timing. There was an opening at the University of Missouri for the director of Marching Mizzou. And I had applied for that position one time before and didn't even get considered. And I said, well, what the heck, I'll just try again. And anyway, so long story short, I got hired as the director of athletic bands at the time at the University of Missouri, was the director of Marching Mizzou for 6 years. After my 3rd year, I was named the director of bands. Again, some reshuffling and all of that. And then in the fall of 2015, if everybody remembers, fairly current events, there was a lot of incidents on campus at the University of Missouri, a lot of protests and things like that. I forgot to mention that I've met my wife at the University of Southern Mississippi. Anyway, so
That was your daughter, but anyway, go ahead.
So she was working in the administration building at Mizzou at the time, and it was just came a situation where I was basically having to escort her out of the building every day. And we had 2 very small kids at the time, and we just had a talk. We actually were driving to my parents' house one weekend, and we just said, "Is this where we want to be?" And we decided, maybe not. And so I had heard that Jerry Hoover was retiring, and again, it was very late in the process, and so I called my former chair at the Oklahoma State University, who was the new chair at Missouri State, Dr. Julie Combs, and I said, "Hey, have they hired anybody for for Jerry Hoover's spot yet?" And she said, "Well, you couldn't have called at a better time because we're meeting with the search committee tomorrow. Can you give me your stuff?" And so I don't remember if we turned the call around, but we did something, and I got my materials, turned in, and literally it was a week later, I came down and interviewed, and a couple of days later, I was offered the job, and we were down here, looking for homes. It also happened really fast, and, kind of a whirlwind, but that's how I got here.
So I'm gonna get back to the Marines in just a second, but tell us what you knew of Jerry Hoover and our band program.
Well, I mean, he's a legend, in the state. When I was at University of Missouri, I got to see at the time the SMS Bruin Pride Band perform in the old Cardinal Stadium for the Greater St. Louis Marching Band Contest. And I just went up with a couple of friends, and they were the exhibition band. And I actually have this conversation with the band staff all the time, and I just will never forget that performance. And it was, wow, this is different than what I thought a college marching band, could be. So much better than anything I'd ever seen. And so, yeah, he's been here, for 31 years. And I'd always kind of joke, I think I even told you this because you were part of my interview.
Yeah.
I said, I wonder what idiot's gonna, try to take Jerry Hoover's. I'm the idiot, so, but today I'm a genius, so there you go. So he was very intimidating. But I will say that he, has been very supportive of what we've done here, and he's just been great.
So let me go back to the Marines. So what was it that just inspired you to go into the Marines? Was it more you wanted to be on the musical side of it, which is very impressive, or was it more that just was a calling just to be in the armed services?
It's kind of a combination of everything. when I approached my parents about it, they said, well, why the Marines? And I said, well, if I'm gonna do it, I want to be part of the best, right? And so, the few and the proud, right? And so, that's why I did it. I mean, I always knew growing up that I felt like I was going to serve, and, again, I felt crazy, being 27 years old. I was older than all of my drill instructors. And, but, it changed my life.
So back to the Hoover days, and you tell you what, using a musical term, you never skipped a beat to go from the Hoover to what you guys are producing, which is just, it's very, very impressive. But how has marching band changed? I mean, when you go to Jerry's office, I think you literally would be mapping it out on paper, but has technology changed?
Yeah, that's probably one of the biggest things that we've been able to do, the last few years. We've gone completely paperless, and I don't know, some of you I've talked before, or some of you have been in band and you're familiar with, charts and coordinate sheets and all that stuff, and definitely, putting music in a flip folder. Now our students, we don't give them a piece of paper at all. We use a couple of different apps. Probably the most game-changing app that we use is an app called Ultimate Drill Book. And, we still have to write the drill, but we use computer for all that. And we can upload our drill to the app, and then the students can punch in their spot in the app, and then they can, watch a video of their spot, and, they can put in the people around them, and they can see how they relate to the other people around them. And it just really streamlined, the learning process. And we started doing this the year that COVID hit. And it was a really valuable tool that allowed us to keep going, because students could miss, when they got put into quarantine and all that stuff, but they could still keep up to date through the app, and it was like they never missed. So that's been a big game changer for us. And we were at the time, other people were using the app, but we were one of the first college marching bands to use it. And so the developers of the app contacted us, and they asked us feedback. Hey, how can we make this more relevant for college marching band? And so we've been kind of a part of the development of the app. And then we use a different app for all of our music. And again, it's just been a game changer, a time saver for me. No more photocopies and all that stuff. Just upload it and kids have it automatically.
But the number of students is still impressive. And they're not all music students. Tell us about that.
Yeah, we hover around 300 every year, give or take, a few students. This year, I think we're going to be well over 300. We already have 300 confirmed for the fall. And that's been the weirdest thing for me, because when I was at Mizzou, we went to back-to-back SEC championships, Cotton Bowl, Citrus Bowl, all that stuff. We didn't really have to, recruit. So I had to kind of, get out there and beat the streets a little bit. I wanted people to know, what we were doing. And so it's cool to recruit for a band that is kind of known, has its own identity outside of athletics. And so, yeah, we've been able to beef up our numbers, or maintain our numbers whenever other places have been, kind of dipping down, especially post-COVID. But we have a really strong non-music major population in our band. And really, it's the kind of the heart and soul of our band. And I would say I don't know, John Maxine, you could probably help me out here, but I would say we're over 50% non-music majors. It's mostly non-music majors. We only have a 2-year requirement for our music education majors. But most of them that want to be band directors, they understand the value of it, and they participate for 4 years. But by and large, whenever you see senior day and we recognize our graduating members, most of those are non-music majors.
That's very good. So walk us through just a quick schedule. I mean, to be in the marching band, you've got to have dedication. I mean, it's not showing up for one practice a week.
No, we practice 5 days a week. And yeah, it's kind of crazy, and it's different every day, which is even crazier. We practice Mondays and Wednesdays from 3:30 to 5 p.m. Tuesdays and Thursdays, starting this year, will be from 5:15 to 6:15 p.m. And then on Fridays, we go from 3:30 to 5:45. And then we have a preseason band camp that's 8 in the morning to 8 at night. And we'll have a total of 3 color guard and drumline camps over the course of the summer. So yeah, it is a good addition.
And you already started camps, already.
Well, we've had one drumline camp, one color guard camp already, and then we're actually preparing right now for that second round of those camps. And then we have a big Bands Alive summer band camp. And we started last year, we started at Directors Institute. And so we're gearing up for that at the end of June as well.
And so compare our band to other bands at bigger institutions. What's the difference?
Their attitude. I think what makes Missouri State special is our members have had a really positive experience in the band, and we turn out a ton of band directors. And those band directors in turn, have a large influence on their students' decisions. And if you make it a positive experience for those students, then it just creates this cycle, and it, just kind of perpetuates itself. And so it's just the whole band community in this part of the state is just very unique to anywhere I've ever been. I've lived in Kansas City, I've lived in St. Louis, I've lived in Columbia, but there's just this pocket of really strong band programs in the Springfield area that just have great kids. And, have I had better playing bands elsewhere? Probably so, but I haven't had better bands than what I've had here.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's impressive. I mean, when you think of the number of band directors, like Craig Finger at Nick's came out of our program. The Nick's band is huge.
Yeah.
So why is it then that that dedication still continues and it's different? Why is it so different?
I think that students get a bad rap these days. And I find that band kids especially still like to be challenged. And they don't want to be part of something mediocre, especially if they're going to commit that much time to it. And we preach that there's no shortcuts to excellence. And I just think that's why kids want to be a part of it. Our retention rate is insane. That's another aspect of what makes what we do so special. I mean, most places you're lucky if you get 30 or 40% to come back. It's mostly just, we call them freshmen and fools. So it's kind of becomes a numbers game. But here we have a large number of people that just want to do it, year after year. And it's just a culture that exists within the program.
And it's expensive to run a band program. I mean, so and you've got some trips I know you've taken in the past, but oh my gosh, that's expensive to take 350 people on a trip anywhere.
Yeah, it's not cheap. And it's something that most people probably don't know is, our students actually pay to be in the band, which is kind of weird. But it's mostly because it is so expensive to, participate in a college marching band. And to just, load everybody up on a bus, you're talking, for a day, 6 buses, that's $2,000 a bus, and you have to feed everybody. So to just get on the bus and go nowhere and do nothing, you're looking at, $15,000, so it's not cheap.
Any trips coming up in the future?
Well, we're going to be exhibition band in St. Louis this fall. We're weighing out some opportunities with our wind ensemble and community band to take an international trip next spring. And so, yeah, we're looking at a couple of options.
Let's we got some pictures that we got of you. Andrew, let's put those pictures up, and then I'm going to have you comment on these. Now, how old were you there?
I think I was 6 or 7 in that picture. What's interesting about that, so my dad was my first baseball coach, and the M is for we were the Midland Sea Beers. And my dad,
I mean, like a CV?
Midland CVs, yeah, so that was the name of our team.
Oh, that's cool.
So my dad, he actually, I didn't know this at the time, he told me years later, he took the people that got cut from another team. So I was actually a member of a scrub team. But the cool part about it was we beat the team that the kids got cut from. So anyway, my dad was my first baseball coach, yeah.
What position did you play?
I played everywhere. I taught, that was my primary position.
Yeah.
I wasn't catching, I usually played shortstop or third base.
Yeah, okay, let's go to the next one here. Oh, and you look pretty serious there.
Yeah, that's 1997 right there. That was my boot camp Marine Corps photo. Yeah. That's not a boot camp photo. So this is actually a pretty cool picture here. So I'm in the middle. We were very fortunate. We had a really good basketball team at Mizzou whenever I was there. This is from my sophomore year. And we got to go to the mountain class.
Oh.
So the person is cutting out. So the tall guy on the far right, he's actually the mascot for the Kansas. Casey Wolf. Yeah, that's Dan Mears. He's Casey Wolf now, and yeah, that's
And he's got a great story.
yeah, he does. He's a great guy.
What's the next picture there?
So this is from 2002. That's my mentor. Name is Tom Friskillo. And that's actually outside of St. Peter's Basilica. That was my first year as a DMA student, and we got to bring all 4 DMA students over, and we did a week-long clinic with the Italian Army Band in Rome. Yeah.
Let's go to the next one.
This is a cool picture here. This is from my time at Oklahoma State. This is actually inside the Dallas Cowboys Stadium. We played a Dallas Cowboys game on the way back from, or this might have been a Cotton Bowl. I don't know. Anyway, one of those two things. But the person I'm standing there with was a former student at Southern Miss, and he's the director of PR for the Dallas Cowboys now.
Oh, good. Next one. Oh,
Yeah, so there is me and Garth Brooks.
Garth Brooks.
So yeah, Garth Brooks is a famous Oklahoma State alum.
Yeah.
And he was going to be he was the grand marshal of homecoming parade one year. And so we were going to do a Garth Brooks halftime show. And just coincidentally, he asked for a meeting with my assistant and me. And anyway, so we had a meeting with Garth Brooks in my office for about an hour. And so, yeah, it was
It's nice when everybody says it's
super nice.
really.
Yeah, very soft spoken, very humble. Yeah. Another shot from Italy. These are 2 of my other graduate student friends. Person on the left is the director of bands at North Carolina State now, and the one in the center, director of bands at Mississippi Gulf Coast College. But yeah, another trip from Italy there. That is a Cotton Bowl shot, I believe. That the drum major in that picture was actually featured on a story on CNN. His name is Paul Headings, and he's legally blind. And that's whenever I actually started getting on a ladder next to my drum majors, because even though he's looking at the game, he couldn't see anything. And so we would start to stand next to each other and we would communicate that way, but he couldn't see more than about 4 or 5 feet in front of him. Yeah.
Okay. Next one.
So this is a picture from Limerick, Ireland. The person with me is a good friend of mine. His name is Fuller Lyon. He's now the assistant director of bands at the University of Tennessee. But the trophy we're holding is the Limerick International Band Festival Grand Championship trophy. So we were fortunate to go to Ireland twice when I was at Mizzou, and we won that championship twice.
Impressive. Oh, this is
This is a cool picture here. So the person from to my left, 2 people over, former student of mine who is now a member of the Old Guard in Washington, D.C. And they came back, again, this is at Mizzou, and did a concert with us. They were in the area, and so it's pretty cool. I actually have 3 or 4 students that serve with the Old Guard in a couple different capacities. Yeah,
That's cool. There you go.
these people were familiar.
Yeah.
So this is my wife Leanne, my daughter Caroline, and my son Brett. A funny story about my son Brett. My wife was talking to him last night and said that we were going to be coming to the luncheon, luncheon with an MSU genius, and he said, "Who's the genius?"
That hurts. No.
And this was a shot from last summer. Actually, we went to Orange Beach for a week before band camp started. So
Nice. Do they play instruments?
my son is going to start trombone down in Nixa next fall. Yeah,
Good,
Yeah.
good.
my daughter's competitive cheer.
Ah, doesn't want to play any.
We'll see. They both played. We'll see.
Yeah, all right. Jackson, why don't you come on up? We always bring a student in here. Jackson, you sit right in the middle. I'm gonna have to hold this. And Jackson, introduce yourself and your connection with Dr. Snow.
And talking into microphones is gonna make me very nervous.
Oh,
I'll try. I'm Jackson Dampier and I'm from Columbia, Missouri. I graduated from Rockbridge High School in 2019. And I just graduated from Missouri State University with a bachelor's in exercise and movement science. And I am starting physical therapy school next week. I met Dr. Snow when I was a middle schooler at a Mizzou middle schooler band camp over the summer. And he actually moved back down here when I was either in 8th grade or a freshman. And that was the reason I am down here at Missouri State rather than the school I shall not name.
And so, what instruments do you play?
I play the trumpet,
Yep.
thankfully. I think Dr. Snow would agree with that
We
one.
actually studied from this trumpet teacher. My college trumpet teacher was his high school trumpet teacher.
Wow. So tell us, and this is not canned, so tell us about your experience with Dr. Snow, the good and the bad of Dr. Snow. Minus
Start
the
with
bad.
the good.
Yeah.
One thing that I've noticed about Dr. Snow, just in a leadership sort of stance, as opposed to quite a few people that I've met, is he is very cut and dry. He'll tell you how it is, even if it's not exactly what you want to hear, which ultimately I think is probably something that most people need in the long run. Being soft with people, I feel like isn't gonna, ultimately make them succeed. And I'm glad that he pushes me and others to succeed in that way.
So the dedication, we talked about that, the dedication. Tell us what your schedule was like in terms of putting all the academics together and the band program.
So I also minored in music, and with most freshmen, their first couple semesters as a minor in music with any other major is going to be a lot of, music courses, music theory, wind ensembles like that, pride band, as well as a lot of the gen eds and your, core curriculum. And, as I'm progressing throughout my degree, I was thankful that pride band ended up fitting into my schedule every year. Probably would have fought someone to switch the schedule around had I not been able to, because I was determined to do my 4 years and get my degree. But yes, it is very hard to fit in, non-music classes with the music ones.
So having 350 people, that takes, I assume not all 350 people all get along with one another. You had 350 different personalities. So what is it like to put all those people together, and both of them for this question? That's rather tough. Make sure literally you got to march in the right step. Everybody's got to be in the same cadence.
I can speak to the full band aspect, and then Jackson was actually section leader for our trumpets the last 3 years, and he can kind of speak to that. But the way we have it organized is, even though we have 300 people in the band, what we do is we divide them into 3 equal bands, and we call those neighborhoods. It's actually a brainchild of John Sullivan. And what we do is during band camp, we divide them into those 3 smaller bands, and then that's kind of their starting point to get to learn people from other sections. And it just kind of breaks down that wall. And it's just less intimidating, especially for those people, coming, I mean, like a lot of these people, like, I mean, not necessarily Jackson, but, he has 40 people in his section and probably half the band didn't have 40 people in their band, And so it can be very intimidating. And so, we found, and it works really well, that if we start with that smaller group, then, it just makes it easier. And we'll play games and we end, the week doing we call it, neighborhood Olympics, where we do just some, stupid games and things like that. So that's what we do as a full band, and then each section is set up to where they can kind of fill as well. So Jackson can probably speak on that better.
Yeah, so coming from a decently sized high school band program, even coming here was a bit intimidating for me. I can't imagine what it would be like being in an even smaller band than I was in, and joining a 350 person marching band. But even within the section and the whole band, it's obviously going to come with a little bit of strife, especially when you have people from all different backgrounds, all different personalities. And, it's really cool being able to try to fit all those people in together. Being a section leader, it's really hard being, a leader as well as a peer over people. And it's, really, it's a privilege to, oh my gosh. It's a privilege to be able to try to fit those personalities, and people try to, pair people with matching personalities, and, ultimately be that person that, helps foster relationships within college.
Very good. Okay, Jackson, hang loose, and we're gonna get to your questions here in just a second, but we're gonna go through a quick lightning round, Dr. Snow. Whatever comes to your mind, you just spit it out. You don't have
That's gonna be bad.
this could be,
I apologize to my wife.
yeah.
She already left.
No. Okay, the first question, country music or top 40 music?
Top 40.
Really? Is that your favorite? Between those two it is, but what do you listen to outside of this? Outside of
I listen to a lot of things, but when we're picking music that we're gonna play at, basketball games and things like that, then, I want to try to stay, current, and, so we have to kind of listen to the top 40 stuff. I don't necessarily care for it all, but.
So give me an artist
Okay.
that you really would like to do a tune from. Dua Lipa, would you care for doing?
We actually did a Dua Lipa tune 2 falls ago. We did, was it Don't Start Now? Is that the name of that song? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I like Dua Lipa. Yeah.
Okay. It's the only one I know, so I can go that. Favorite restaurant in Springfield?
Oh, man. We eat in my places. Lately, we've been going to Da Vinci's a lot.
Wow, yeah.
We like to go out for breakfast and brunch.
Yeah. So Jackson, I'll even ask you, I mean, because they feed the band quite a bit. Your worst meal, category, you don't always say place, but what do you not like to eat as a band member and you grown when they serve blank?
I think a lot of people in the band can attest to this when, we're in Texas and we're being handed a cold cut sandwich as opposed to Texas barbecue. I'm pretty sure quite a bit of the band would probably say a deli sandwich.
Deli said, yeah, well, that's easy to do. So, okay. That wasn't actually a question, but I was curious on that one. Okay, next question. Winter, spring, summer, or fall?
Fall.
Fall, and that is because?
Football. Yeah. Weather.
Yep.
Long sleeve clothing.
Yeah. Favorite holiday?
4th of July.
Ah, good.
My birthday's on July 7th, and so when I was growing up, I used to think that, hey, people are shooting off fireworks for my birthday. And so I've just always loved it.
Favorite vacation spot?
The beach.
Good. The best campus spot? Besides your office?
I don't get out of my office much. It's either the office or the union club. That's about the only 2 places I go, to be honest with you.
Okay, that's good. Books or movies?
Movies. Sorry.
Early morning guy or a late night owl?
Late night out.
Okay, how late do you stay up?
Pretty late, usually, 1 or 2.
Holy cow. That is late, yeah. Favorite sport?
To play is golf, to watch baseball.
Very good. Magazines you subscribe to are,
A lot of professional journals.
Okay.
Used to have a subscription to Sports Illustrated, but everything's online now, so.
Yeah.
A lot of professional journals.
hors d'oeuvres or dessert?
Desserts, definitely.
Very good. Did you eat dessert today?
I did,
Yeah,
yeah.
very good, yeah. Your favorite TV show?
Oh, man, this is where my wife would do. I watch a lot of stupid TV shows. I mean, really stupid TV shows. And so lately I've been watching,
I knew I liked you.
no, I watch a lot of History Channel, and it's not necessarily history, but I like Swamp People, Ancient Aliens, and The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch. I'm done with dumb TV.
Yeah, you're a second.
Mindless.
Yeah. Comedy or drama?
Comedy.
Comedy, all right, that's good. Best part of your job?
Getting to work with students. Even though I get older, they stay the same age, and it keeps me, it keeps me feeling young.
Very good. Questions that stump Dr. Snow out there? Neosha?
Well, do you need any more percussion? No. Are you the director of the community band?
I am, yeah, I started, took that over, this last, couple of years. Yeah, we've got a couple of community band members in here. Yeah, or you want to join? I know that she actually, we've had a couple of discussions. She was one of the first female members of the University of Oklahoma band.
Well, of the percussion section, yes.
So,
They made me play cymbals because I wasn't a percussion major. Cymbals don't make mistakes.
Monday nights at 6:30, if you want to join us, we always need percussions.
Where at?
We're band hall.
Where band? Oh, both there.
Very good. Mark?
For the football halftime shows, your arrangements of the songs and also the routines, how do you come up with those?
We have several meetings throughout the spring and summer. We're actually in the process of kind of deciding what we want to do right now. Yeah, John Sullivan is very instrumental in that process as well. We have a drill writer, a man by the name of Chris Church, who's a retired band director from Lord High School, that's on our staff as well. And then we have a wonderful musical arranger. His name is Steve Vento. And so we kind of work together, and then Steve's wife is also very involved in the process. And it's a big, there's a lot of planning involved, and so it's just a lot of meetings that take place.
Yes.
Is there a lot of difficulty with doing contemporary pop music?
Yeah, you have to pay a lot of money for copyright. We actually pay more for the copyrights than we do for the arrangements. It's kind of crazy. And so when you do, several pieces kind of mashed together, then even if you only use, 10 seconds from a piece, you still have to pay, full copyright for that stuff. So yeah, and some music you can't even get copyright for, so that does limit you quite a bit. That's a good question.
Good question.
I can't remember the name, but Jerry Hoover had a small jazz band.
Yeah, that was the Dues Band.
And
Yeah.
you still do that?
No, we actually have a jazz program at Missouri State, and the person that just retired from that position, Randy Ham, he ran the jazz program, and we're actually hiring for his position right now. But no, when Jerry left, they kind of reassigned some duties, and when I got here, that jazz band was no longer part of my assignment.
Particularly, I remember around Veterans Day events and big Veterans Day dances, and they dressed in the World War II uniforms. It was.
Yeah, they did a lot of things like that. There was, if you go through Weir Band Hall, I mean, there's all kinds of historical photos, and you'll see a lot of those that you're talking about. Yeah.
Some people think that the best university marching band in the country is Ohio State. And the last time I looked, their budget was $1 million a year. That's several years ago. Is there anything about that program that you think would be worth emulating?
It's one of those programs where, it's so steeped in tradition, they couldn't do anything different if they wanted to, So in that regard, I wouldn't want to be like them, because I want to, have our own identity. It's, you talk about apples and oranges, it's such a different, philosophy of what a college marching band should be. My my goal as a professor here at Missouri State is we're training people to go be band directors. And when they get out, they're not gonna be able to go to a marching band competition and, you know, do a stick figure, you know, doing the splits, you know, like Ohio State does. They're gonna have to, you know, understand the things we were just talking about in terms of show design and planning and things like that. So I would be failing our students and their potential success as band directors if we went that route, if that makes sense. It's very impressive what they do, though, you know, no doubt about that.
So we're training future band directors for the high schools, wherever they go. Do you teach some of those courses that they have to take?
I do. I teach some conducting classes. I started a band, a literature class this last spring, where they can kind of familiarize themselves with the music that's out there and available. I taught a class called Band Administration and Materials. And that's been a really valuable class for them too. Yeah. And I tell all my students, you know, I'm a lifelong resource for them. So, you know, it's not, you know, you're out of here, I'm done with you. I get students call me, email me all the time asking for advice.
Other questions? Yes.
A piece of music or?
Performance.
Well, 2 years ago, we were invited to go to San Antonio with the band, and we did a show, and Jackson was part of the show. Probably the best marching band show I've ever been part of. Pat Metheny. It was a piece of his first circle, and it was very demanding musically and visually, and so that's probably my favorite show that I've ever done.
Other questions? How heavy in Jackson, how, on a hot day? How hot is hot in that uniform?
Be honest.
We had a football game that was, I believe, the opener a couple of years ago where it was extreme, or was it this past year? This last year, where it was very hot outside, and those uniforms always tend to be extremely hot when it's hot outside and then don't do anything when it's cold outside. So it's kind of the worst of both worlds. But yeah, those uniforms they get very hot. And then when you add on the hat and then you add on, you know, the gloves and you're holding your instrument and then you're marching, it definitely compounds itself.
How much is a uniform cost?
About $500-600 each.
So you don't change those every year?
No, we're on year 6, 7 right now, so 8 to 10 years. Yeah.
Very good. They look sharp though. Other questions? Yes, we have
We
someone
had a
more.
question online.
Yeah.
Did your choice of the Marines have anything to do with its history with John Philip Sosa?
With John Philip Sousa was really the person that kind of made the Marine Band into what it is. Yeah, I always had a fascination with John Philip Sousa. I've probably read more about him than any other, you know, historical figure in my life. So yeah, it was definitely an impact for me. Yeah.
Good question. Yep. Other questions? Well, thank you, Dr. Snow. We are glad that your journey brought us to Missouri State. And you are a bear, and you've continued the tradition of a great marching band and bands, and that continues and will only get bigger and better. So we're glad you are here and you're a bear.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
We're doing a concert with Neosha and her cymbals right after that. And thank you all for being here for lunch with the genius, and we'll see you in a couple months.